Hi, everybody. Thanks a million for tuning in today. I'm delighted to be joined by Alan. Alan, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me, Una. Absolute pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. So, I suppose in today's session, guys, just to give you an overview, so Alan is a health and wellness coach, so has a wealth of experience and written many articles for many different organizations and many different publishing companies. So, I suppose in that overview today, we're going to take all the information that we can from Alan's background and experience and try and implement it practically in a day-to-day context, both for students, adults, for everybody really this is applicable for. Our main topic we're going to look at is five commandments of fitness. So I suppose how we can maybe improve our overall general well-being and our health and look after ourselves more or help others with looking after themselves too. So Alan, maybe I'll leave it over to you to kick off if you want to maybe give a brief background as to your own expertise and maybe we can start then into the first of the principles that you'd suggest.
Yeah, 100%. So, my background, I suppose I played a lot of sports when I was younger. I was very active. I was one of those kids that was always out kicking a ball or climbing trees and came from a farming background as well. So, activity was always a big thing. I was always out and about, rarely in front of screens or any of that stuff. As I grew up, I was actually quite shy. I was very introverted when I was younger, believe it or not. And I really struggled with that. And in hindsight, there was probably social anxiety there, held me back from doing a lot of things right through even to my college years. But it was around that time that I discovered the gym and I started dipping my toes in the water and the fitness lifestyle started to come to me. And it really pulled me out of my shell. And I got so much, I suppose, comfort from it, but it helped me grow my confidence as well because I could see physically the body was changing. I was able to do things I couldn't do before. And people were starting to tell me I was looking good or they'd ask you for advice. And that basically started to build me up as a human being. And that is one of the reasons I always come back to when I speak about fitness. It's not just about what a lot of people think it is, which is to go, oh, well, it's vanity or he wants to look good or whatever. It's not that at all. It's what it actually gives you beyond that. It's the energy, it's the mental health, it's the mental clarity, it's that feeling of I feel good about myself. It's the contentment in yourself. So that's what it gave me and really brought me out of my shell. As I set up my own business, I had a lot of struggles in the early years, started to build up, started to get a little bit more successful. And over time, I found myself getting a bit more even attention in the media. I was writing for the likes of the Irish Independent. I published two books. I was on news talks and BBC Radio. So it went from, if I look at my journey, you had somebody who was very introverted and struggling to even speak in small groups to being on national radio. And it was just a huge thing for me. And it was almost conquering my own fears. And when I actually look at what was the vehicle for that, it was actually fitness. So that's the approach they always take. For me, it's about every client I work with. Yes, they want to get physically in shape, but it's also about making sure they're living a well-rounded life and they're happy and contented in themselves and they're thriving as a human being. That's the most important thing for me.
Exactly. And it's great to hear your own experience, Alan, as to, how it moved from that social side to then, I suppose, speaking more and being more vocal. And I suppose that would be, resonating with a lot of our audience, both as parents and maybe of, students that have different elements of learning difficulties, that may be presented also for them. And I suppose in terms of those practical day-to-day strategies, then, Alan, what would you suggest as maybe the first few things that people can kind of implement or the things that you would advise people to maybe get going on this journey?
Okay. So what I'd say first, unit is for me, I'm very much around mindset. I think it's a huge thing is actually what's going on between your ears is very often what's holding you back from achieving the success that you want in fitness, in life, whatever the goal is. When we look at fitness, there's this misconception sometimes that it's just about like eat less, move more, and so on and so forth. In reality, if it was that simple, everybody would be in incredible shape and everybody would be going around with a six pack. It's not that simple. So, what I'm going to give you guys today is more so mindset tips, probably more than like here's calories and here's whatever. We're not going to go down that route. So, the first thing I'm going to say is accepting that fitness will be up and down. That's the first thing because I work with a lot of clients who are maybe lower levels of training. They're just starting out. It's quite new to them. They want to lose a few pounds. They want to feel better in themselves, all the stuff we spoke about. And sometimes there's this unrealistic expectation that I have to be making progress all the time. I have to keep bringing that weight down. The scales has to keep coming down. And sometimes they come in and they're doing amazingly well at the start. And then they hit this plateau, or maybe there's a week when they step on a weighing scales and it's gone backwards. It's not gone the way they want. And the most common problem and the biggest reason people are constantly starting over and over with this stuff is because they're too emotional about it. It's like every version of success for them is what a weighing scale is telling them. And if it goes up, it's like, oh, I've ruined everything. And then they start beating themselves up. And then there's the self-loathing. And why did I do that? And I'm the worst. And I'm a failure. And I failed again. And I always fail. And what happens? They're kicking themselves so much that they want something to pick them up. And what is that? It's comfort food. And suddenly it's a couple of days of actually eating to make us feel better. And then it's a week later. And then it's 2 weeks and they're way off track. And they're constantly restarting. What you have to accept with fitness is that there's going to be times when it's going really, really well. You're in flow, everything's going perfectly, and that's a beautiful state when it happens. But it's not always there. There's other times when you're going to go to a wedding and you're thrown off track for a weekend, or maybe you've just had a binge and it's just been like things haven't gone to plan. That's okay. That's part of the process. That's just being human. Like every one of us has that. I was speaking to a client the other day and she was saying, I should be able to control this now. Like, oh, why does this happen? Like, I thought I had it all sorted. I was saying, you'll never have it sorted. I'm training 20 years. I still have binges. And everybody I know does. That's normal. It's just what we do. It's how quickly can we rein it back in and not beat ourselves up about it. Just like it's done. Let's not dwell on it. Let's move on. But when you accept that as part of your fitness journey, that it's going to be up and down, it takes the pressure off. It takes that expectation off, that need to be perfect all the time. You have to accept that, like messing up, failing, having setbacks. That's all part of the process. It's not the opposite of success. It's actually part of it because your ability to draw a line under that and to rebound from it, your ability to build resilience, that's what creates long-term success and that's what will make it stick in the long run. So that's the first tip today.
Yeah, which is it's so great to hear. I suppose the mindset side of it, Alan, as you say, lots of people focus on primarily the more exterior concept of it and what it looks or how it's resonating, in a mirror, as you said, or on a scales. And I suppose there's a lot of that internal aspect too of how somebody feels, obviously, while they're, involved in that fitness journey. And I suppose the resonance for that person as to what works for them too. As you said, lots of things are very individualistic,
Yeah,
and it's about what works for that particular person.
100% it is. And like that internal dialogue is the strongest thing of all. If we want to speak about like, I want to be the healthiest version of myself for the rest of my days, if we're talking about forevermore, because sometimes people have this thing in their head, like, I just want to lose weight and that's it. But if you don't do the work on yourself, if nothing changes there, it's not gonna make any difference. It's not gonna stick because like I love my training. I know some incredible bodybuilders. I know some people who are in incredible shape, but some of them are actually the most insecure people in the world. And you might be surprised to hear that. But that is the reality of it. Because if you don't look at like what's my life like as a whole, am I having fun? Am I enjoying myself? Is there balance? Have I got good friends? Have I got good people around me? Like it's absolutely massive. And the way you treat yourself as well, it's so, so fundamentally important. So that's why I feel that mindset piece and like doing the inner work as well. That's what actually will make it stick long term rather than going, I just need to hit that number on a weighing scales. Because if nothing changes about the way you think about it or about your identity, then it isn't going to last.
Exactly, yeah. And you said that the longevity piece and then following on from that aspect, Alan. So maybe when somebody, starts or understands that process a little bit more and can get working and moving on their mindset correlation with the kind of physical aspect, what might they be able to implement then after that stage?
Yeah, so the second commandment I've written down is your biggest threat is complacency. And the reason I have put that down is because what you'll see sometimes is people will make a great start and they're all over it because what happens at the start doing is like there's almost this pain of some sort. It can be physical, it can be psychological, it can be emotional. It's this pain that they're in and they're going, I just want this taken away. And they'll come in and they'll work with somebody like myself and we'll start pointing them in the right direction and we'll start implementing a few changes and suddenly results are starting to come in and they're feeling much, much better. And at that point, it's almost like, okay, I can relax a little bit now. And what actually happens is the standards start to dip. And in the first case, it's like, but it's only a little bit, it doesn't matter. And it's just that level of complacency is kicking in. It's like, I don't need to put in the same effort that I was before. And you're going, yeah, it is only a little bit at the start. But if it's a 5% drop week on week, suddenly you're 30% off where you are. And that's where the problem comes in. So, to my mind, once people are actually implementing this stuff and they're doing well, it's about can I keep myself to a decent level? Like it might not be perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect, perfect doesn't exist. But can we be 75%, 80% healthy, nutritious foods, making sure we're moving our body, keeping those standards to a decent level? Because if we can do that, consistency is always going to win the game. But the problem is when people get like sitting on it, like I've got a great result. Now I can just ease off and relax a bit. That's why they're constantly stopping and starting. So again, it's probably a mindset thing too, though, in that you don't want to put an end goal on it. Well, you want short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals, but you don't want to psychologically go, I'm doing this until I hit that weight, or I'm doing this until the holiday or until the wedding. Because if that is the message you're sending your brain, there's going to be a huge rebound afterwards. And it can even be subconscious because sometimes people kind of think about this stuff and they go, oh no, no, I'm not just doing it for the holiday, for the wedding, like I want a long-term change. But actually, at the back of their mind somewhere, they're going, I know we're going off to Greece next month now, so I want it, So it very much is around making sure that the stuff that is actually working for you, that you focus on creating habits and routines, because that's where the magic is. It's not in the result, it's in the habits and the routines. That's what's going to keep you moving forward long term. That's what you want to be nailing, not necessarily the immediate result.
Yes, and it's so great. And I think, and even for myself and my own practice, and I view that slightly differently as well in the last number of months previous to that. I always thought maybe discipline was more related to work and career, and it was maybe educational driven. Be disciplined to, do all of these things or, get all this stuff done. Let's say it was always in that kind of doing and moving. And I never really viewed it as kind of a well-being discipline. It wasn't like, oh, well, sure, I'm disciplined to go do exercise or I'm disciplined to go here at this particular time because that's on. And I noticed myself through our organization, obviously with working with students with learning differences, they may change or there may be a class and we're like, okay, well, sure, look, I won't do that now, training session, or I won't go to that now. I'll just, try and slot in this student. So it is a fascinating one to not only view discipline in a kind of a work context, but also to view it as you say, more of a life approach and kind of streamlining those routines so that, we can have more of ourselves present too.
Isn't it so interesting in it? Because I work with a lot of people who are career driven. So, like a lot of business owners, a lot of high performers within their career. But actually, a lot of them are struggling to keep the health and fitness goals to the same standards. And it's exactly what you were speaking about. Very often, when life gets busy or career gets busy, the first thing to go in the bin is the health goals and the fitness goals. And it's so funny because when things are quieter in their work life or in their family life and they're more focused on their fitness goals and everything is going well, they're going, I feel amazing, I feel so good, my energy's so good, my mental clarity is good, I feel amazing. And what I'm trying to highlight to them is, but when work gets busy, that's the time that you actually need that. That's the time that you need to keep it in place. And I know you might not be able to keep it to the same level because there's more demands on you. But I have what we call minimum standards where we go, okay, well, like, let's plan this in advance. When this busy time comes up, what is the minimum effective dose? What can we do that will just keep us ticking over so that
Yes.
we're not binning everything off? We're keeping things ticking over. So we're feeling good. We have that energy. We have that mental clarity when we need it most. And then when things quieten down, we can absolutely accelerate again. So it's just been a little bit more strategic about it. But the one thing I would highlight, and you've kind of touched on it there, is recognizing that this is the stuff that actually helps you perform in your career and in every aspect of your life. So we should probably be going, I need to make sure that I am holding those standards with it and keeping a level of discipline.
Very much so, yeah, and it's making it as equally as important as all of the rest of the stuff, when I was trying
Yeah.
to not negotiate with those boundaries, or look after other people or do all of those things that we all do quite naturally, and as you said, it gives us more energy to then execute those other aspects then that are on our plate, and once we have, I suppose, kind of harnessed or tried to implement some aspects of discipline, which I know is a lifelong journey. So it's not maybe a linear pattern here to the 5 tips, but I suppose when we move from the discipline, then Alan, what might be the next reoccurring and thing that somebody can implement for their practice?
Yeah. So the next one is probably for people who are maybe already kind of up and running and doing some stuff, but then they've made progress and they've got to a point where they're kind of just starting to plateau and the intensity's gone and they're going through the motions a little bit. So it's like, yeah, well, I'm kind of showing up, but I'm not really getting anything from it. And I've been through this myself. And the reason I've put this one in, and it is what I've written down is operate as if it'll be your last easy month. The reason I've said that is because I've experienced a pretty bad injury myself this year. And it's actually, to be honest, it's the worst injury I've ever had in my life. I've been very lucky. I've played football all my life, never had any bad injuries. This year I done my knee, stud the meniscus in my knee, and it was a long path back. That was in April. I'm only getting back to it now, but it has made me so much more grateful for the ability to train and to be able to do things even at the intensity that I want and be able to just enjoy my training and be able to do it and have that ability to do it. So what that has made me realize is before I was injured, I was actually coasting. I was showing up and I was doing the do, but I was going through the motions. I wasn't really getting as much out of it as I could have been. And it was only the injury that made me realize that. And being able to actually get back to a decent level of training now, I have so much gratitude for it. And I'm going, why was I not doing this before the injury? So I've been trying to frame this to my own clients in that what I'm saying to them is if you're coasting, put a little bit of pressure on yourself and imagine there is a big injury just around the corner for you. If you knew you had only 1 month now to make progress, that next month you're going to do your knee, what would you actually do? What would be different? Would your standards be higher? Would they be a little bit different? Would you train with a bit more intention? Would there be a little bit more intensity in there? Would you prioritize your nutrition? What would be different if you knew you had only 1 good month? So treat that month as if it's your last easy month. From here, something around the corner could knock you out of sync. If you need a little kick right now, that's your frame.
Yeah, it's such a great mindset on it, Alan, really, isn't it? I suppose that, there's all the concept of, make every day count and treat it all as your last. And I think that often that's maybe put in a perspective then of other people or, with kindness to others or doing the best that you can in general. But as you say, maybe seeing something that could inevitably happen to any of us. Unfortunately, anybody can get an injury at any stage, that can impact them not only short term, but unfortunately long term. And I suppose it's about kind of recognizing, as you say, and definitely the gratitude that if we are physically well and able to move, kind of implementing those things when we can do that with a lot more ease and regularity.
100%. But you know what's coming to my mind as well? And I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the term self-care, right? We hear so much about it. And I think people associate that with like meditation and spa days and duvet days and all this sort of stuff. And that's fine. All that stuff has its place, right? And not criticize them for a second. To me, self-care is also doing the difficult thing. It's doing the stuff that you don't want to do. Because if I look at the type of clients I work with, when they come to me first, again, as I said, they're in some form of pain. And very, very often, the self-care will have gone way too extreme in one direction, where it's like they're being too nice to themselves all the time. They're giving themselves the constant comfort, the constant pick me up with the junk food, all the rest. To my mind, self-care is actually doing the thing that maybe you don't want to do sometimes that you'll thank yourself for further down the road. Because if you look at self-care, well, what is it? For me, the ultimate in self-care is confidence, energy, an ability to perform at high levels. Like that I'm happy and I'm pain-free and I'm contented in myself, and that I'm going to be like that for the rest of my days. That to me is the ultimate self-care. And the only way you can actually do that is by doing hard things and showing up on the day that you actually don't want to do it. Then it will be easier to go, well, not today, it's raining. I'm not even going to bother getting my steps. So like, as I said, I have no problem with the concept of self-care in terms of like the meditations and everything that has a huge role to play, of course, but also just add in that it's not about all the nice stuff. Sometimes you've got to do the hard thing as well.
Yeah, definitely, Alan. And it's a great way of reframing that. I do agree with you. There's a lot of maybe pivoting on that self-care connotation that it should almost be nothing, and we should all be mastering the art of stillness and meditations and you're going through challenging time. Just sit and be with yourself. And yes, I agree with you that there is times and places for those, but you're dead right. There is also times and place for, okay, well, I need to get out and just get my exercise in. And then hopefully with as we know about science and development and how our body works, hopefully we start to feel a little bit better by doing that activity anyway. So
100%.
yes, very much so the self-care doesn't always have to be horizontal,
Yeah.
and I think it is maybe that realignment in how people view their own self-care and what self-care means for them really, and instead of this kind of global concept of maybe an awful lot more stillness.
Yeah, but it's just the balance, isn't it? Because to be fair, like there's probably other people that are in the other way where it's like
Yeah,
all of constant movement and constantly on the go, and we need to pull it back, go
yeah,
meditate, slow down. So
yeah.
it's not that one is right and one is wrong, but it's going like let's make sure we're not leaving out the hard things all the time. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, very much so. And I suppose leading on then from the self-care aspect and kind of integrating that a little bit more, Alan, what might be the next kind of stage along the journey then that people can implement from that part.
Yeah, so for number four, I've said always be learning regardless of how your current results are. And the reason I say that is because, again, you get people that are so fixated with body composition and physique, and it's like, I need to see those numbers change, and they get really obsessed with it. And there's a million reasons that a weighing scales might not change on a given day. And it can even fluctuate even within the space of a couple of hours. So if we're too obsessed about that or too emotional about it, again, we're going to be very up and down. We're going to be emotionally volatile. I would probably be saying to you, have an awareness firstly that if all of your progress is judged on weighing scales, that's a problem first off. Like there are a million different ways to do to judge progress. Am I feeling stronger? Am I feeling fitter? Can I do things I couldn't do before? Are my clothes fitting better? How's my mental clarity? How's my mental health? How's my energy? All of those factors. But even if it is a case, okay, I need to get weight down, and that is genuinely the case for a lot of people, like that's not an issue. That is a genuine and there's no problem with that goal. Just make sure as well that you're learning as you go, that it's not just, I need this result. It has to be this. We don't care what I do to get there. Because on that journey, there will be weeks where you do your check-in and it's not what you want to see. And you might think, I've done all the right things. A million things could have affected that. It could be muscle gain. It could be water retention. It could be that you had a high carb day the day before you weighed. It could be a high sodium day the day before you weighed. All of those things impact the weighing scales. It could be your menstrual cycle for women. So like there's a lot of different factors that come into play. What we need to recognize is the most important thing is that we're continually looking to learn and improve. That's what's going to put us in control forevermore, not just getting the result. The result is amazing, the outcome is amazing, but who we become along the way is even more important. That we're learning, that we're developing, that we're growing. That's, to my mind, the most important factor.
Yeah, it's fabulous. I suppose that learning and kind of absorbing and being open to different factors of knowledge really, Alan, is so important. I suppose there's still so much that we don't know about so many areas, let alone our body and our fitness and our nutrition and how every mechanism and organ works, you know. So I suppose for people to empower themselves as well into doing their own research or reading an article or watching this segment and compacting lots of people's insights and people's information. You know, I teach a nutrition course, and I suppose I say to them on that, don't always take what I say. You know, it's really important that they also look into TED Talks and, you know, different webinars and go and expand their element of knowledge so that they can put bits together that sit right for them. And I suppose for all of us, you know, aspects of what you might say, aspects of what other people might say might fit and resonate at different times, and being open to researching that really as I suppose
Yeah.
to develop their mindset.
Oh, do you know what? You're really onto something here because I was actually just speaking about this last night with my own group, and the point I was making to them was like, yeah, we always want to be learning, but we also have to have an ability to unlearn sometimes because you're speaking about nutrition there. And the example I was actually giving the guys last night was for years and years and years, the food pyramid was rolled out and it was like coming from the government and it was in every school and it was in every community center and it was in every doctor's waiting reception room. And it was like your 6 portions of carbohydrates a day and your tiny little bits of top. And like in the industry, I think we had to hold our hands up and go like, this stuff that we've been teaching is wrong. Like it's not the best option for your health and for your well-being and for getting your body composition in shape. And you have to be open to go like, we have to unlearn that stuff. We have to have a better way of doing things as new evidence comes out. And like even I think we have such a greater awareness now. And we have so much more information than we did certainly when I was growing up, or and I think I was in some ways I was lucky because it was probably the generation before me that had to go like we've been actually teaching the wrong stuff. But even for me, I had been growing up with it because like literally we all seen that food pyramid
Yeah.
everywhere. Like it was everywhere. And it's only when you actually come out the other side and you're doing your own training and you're learning more around nutrition and there's more information and evidence available to us that you go, that stuff wasn't optimal at all. So it's having that willingness to unlearn as well, because sometimes we have these beliefs so hardwired because we've been told it for so long or we've been seeing it for so long that you have to go, okay, maybe I need to be open to a different way of doing things. I need to be open to hearing different opinions. And as you said, then start to form my own thoughts and beliefs and opinions around it.
Yeah, definitely, Alan. And I suppose there's that, you know, just openness in general, really, to information, as you say, and kind of extracting different bits and what fits right for them at the time. And I suppose then on to Amazing. Last number 5 point. What would
Yeah.
you suggest then for people at that particular stage, Alan?
Okay, there's two parts to this one. So I'd always say create an exciting vision for where you're trying to go, so you know what you're moving towards, and that is genuinely something that lights your fire, and you can visualize it, and you can picture yourself there, and it excites you. However, if you are struggling to connect with that along your journey, operate from a place of not wanting to be somewhere. So if you find, okay, the vision is amazing, I'd love to be there, but it feels like it's so far away. Sometimes that can be hard to connect with. If you're like going, oh, it's a million miles away, like I'm going to have to do the work for another year to get there, which is fine. Let's say you're 3, 4 months into your journey and you're going well, you're going, yeah, that vision does excite me, but I'm not in as much pain as I was before. If those standards are starting to slip, operate from a place of going, I don't want to be in the pain that I was before. I don't want to be there again. So sometimes that can be used almost a dark motivation at times. It can be a case of going, if I can't connect fully with the vision that excites me, can I step back into my shoes of where I was when I started? Why did I start in the first place? How was I feeling back then? How was it impacting my life? And this stuff always goes deep, by the way, because these are conversations I have with everybody coming in. Like sometimes they'll say to me, and it's usually surface level stuff when people contact you first, like, oh yeah, I just want to lose weight. I don't take anybody in until we've had a full and frank conversation. I know exactly why this stuff matters to them because this is to help them as well. It's not even just for me. But if we dig deep on it, it's usually way, way stronger than that. It's like I have one client and like he basically was saying to me like he had put on a lot of weight and he actually was even struggling to walk. And he said, look, Alan, I need help, but I only ever last 2 weeks. And I was basically digging deep on it. And I said, well, why does this stuff matter? Now, this guy was very overweight and he was almost in tears. And he said, I'm going to die. He said, if I don't change this, I'm going to die. And I could see how emotional it was for him. But I have to make sure that he's got a strong enough reason to make sure this sticks because that is the reality if he doesn't. So I went a little bit deeper. I said, and if that was to happen, what's the knock on effect? And then he starts talking about his kids, how they'd be impacted. He starts talking about his wife, how she'd be impacted and trying to run the business that he runs and she has no idea about it, and all of this sort of stuff. Suddenly he's got very, very strong reasons to change. And that guy has gone on and lost 7 stone in the last 18 months and he's managed to keep it off. And he's doing amazing things simply because we had that difficult conversation. And also, there's been setbacks along the way, exactly as we discussed earlier. It won't be all plain sailing. But when he is finding, okay, I'm kind of not really feeling it this time, I don't really want to do it, all he has to do is transport himself back to how he was feeling on that first conversation and why it actually is important for him. And suddenly he's like, yeah, I'm ready to keep moving forward now. So if the vision is doing it for you and you're excited by that and that drives you, yes, absolutely lean on that. But if there's parts of the journey where you're feeling, I'm actually struggling to connect with it right now, operate from a place of not wanting to be somewhere if you have to do that temporarily.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing the insights around that story, Alan. I suppose, it's something that maybe people go through very regularly or they witness people going through as well. I suppose we're all in such intertanglement. And I suppose to note on that point, obviously for anybody tuning in, is in maybe a difficult position, to definitely link in with GPs and medical supervision, around those instances too, because
Yeah.
obviously what myself and Alan are presenting are things coming from a knowledge base and an impactful base, but also there is a form at times of medical support that may
Yeah.
be needed for people if they're concerned about their own overall health. And I suppose that end as we wrap up and obviously from all your amazing insights for people that are tuning in today and would like to maybe liaise with you a little bit more or learn about aspects that you're doing, how best could they get in touch with you?
I'm not sure if your audience is a social media type or if they're not. Social media is probably as good as any. Alan Williams, Facebook, Alan Williams Coaching, Instagram, LinkedIn, get me there. Or if you want to email me, info@alanwilliamscoaching.com.
Fabulous. Perfect. Thank you, Alan. Listen, it was a pleasure to have you on for all your suggestions and insights. Again, we love to hear anybody's comments and feedback, and please feel free to send them on either to myself or Alan as to things that you have picked up upon and hopefully, can share the journey that you're on yourselves, either if you're hoping to start or you're in the middle of something. We'd love to hear your insights and speak to you all soon.